All right, we're back. Shop Class Podcast. Tonight we got a special guest, George Vondriska. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that. And this is going to be a blast. Ready to go.
Cool. And we got some regulars. We got Duke from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, middle school shop class.
What's going on? Getting ready for Maker Camp.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about that tonight. And we got Nick from upstate New York, and he's a Maker Faire master. So we're going to get a download. How you doing?
Good. Making pens.
Yes. Nick's going to be making pens. And we made pens with, you turn them on a lathe, and we made them last year. I got in trouble. I was making my pen all messed up, and he said, dude, no. It was funny. But this is so cool. So we'll you know, you're a teacher, a woodworker, but we're always going to start with the first question we ask every guest on our show. Did you have shop class growing up?
I did, and that would be a hugely loaded question for me because I had many shop classes growing up.
Oh, okay. Tell us about it.
High school or middle school, what we could then call junior high. We started sixth grade with shop, and they had industrial arts is what it was called, and home ec. And then when I got to eighth grade, that was the first year that boys were allowed to do home ec and girls were allowed to do industrial arts. So to answer this part of the question, had my first industrial arts class when I was in sixth grade, 10 or 11 years old. Had a really, really good teacher for that, Bill Mathis. And at that age, I decided I wanted to be a shop teacher, just like Mr. Mathis, and asked him how he got where he was. You know, what does it take to be a shop teacher? And he told me where he went to school and what he did and how all that evolved. And I went right down that path. So sixth and seventh grade, I had industrial arts. Half of eighth grade, I had industrial arts. The other half of eighth grade, I did home ec, where I learned, I sewed a pair of jeans and I made a t-shirt. I made a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or a shirt. And then all through high school, we had a great program in high school that was building construction, woodworking, electronics, plastics, drafting. And this was drafting with a pencil and a ruler. Automotive, small engine, metal shop. So I did all of that. Primarily a lot of woodworking, a lot of metal shop, and then the other stuff as I could fit it into my schedule. And then I continued to take shop classes in college because I went to UW Stout, where Bill Mathis had gone, to get a tech ed degree. And I got that to teach material processes so my major was tech ed, but then my, I guess, specialty was material processes, and that included everything. So then again, in college, I took drafting, plastics, electronics, computer, finishing, woodworking, building construction. And then I was putting myself through college by working construction. So I ended up with a tech ed degree and then also a vocational certification in building construction by the time I graduated. So yeah, I had every class I could fit in my schedule from age 10 to whenever I graduated college. Many shop classes. Yeah.
Wow. And so it was a tech ed degree. What college was that again?
University of Wisconsin Stout. So in that time when I started there, which would have been 79, it was still called industrial arts at that time. During my tenure at college, which took me about 8 years to finish my degree because I was a year in school, a year working, a year in school, a year working. By the time, I don't know, maybe in my second or third year, it changed to tech ed. And then, and Stout was a big name at that time. It was UW Stout. And then in northern Minnesota, I think it was Bemidji had a tech ed program. And then Miami of Ohio was the other big school in that time frame for tech ed.
Yeah, there's not that many tech ed programs anymore. So
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to pull it up and look for see if they're still doing this.
Well, I think they still offer it, but my understanding is there aren't any shop classes anymore. That all of those things that I named, which were hands-on woodworking, foundry, sheet metal, machine shop at the college level, finishing, automotive, building construction, all of those shops have closed. And
Oh, here we go. Technical education.
Yeah, there you go.
Technology. That's what they call it now, I guess.
Yeah.
You mean in the high schools they've closed, or at
UW at Stout? And again, don't hold me to this, but my understanding is you no longer take hands-on shop classes as a tech ed teacher like I did when I was there.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting too, Ron. I noticed it was on campus or online.
Yeah. How are you going to do online?
Tried during the pandemic. It didn't work too well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was able to do some CAD, but you could do CAD online, but there's not much else you could do. It depends. I mean, some kids had access to stuff, but my students are all urban, so it's just apartments. So they don't have anything. I mean, we could do electronics. You could do CAD and electronics, probably. Maybe some 3D printing.
Yeah, I did electronics when I was teaching remotely for the pandemic and remote. We used Tinkercad, and they actually upgraded a lot of their circuitry program in Tinkercad because it's not because of me, but because I met with some of the guys in Tinkercad and they gave them feedback. I think I talked to them about an hour and a half one day over Zoom, and they're asking me like, how'd you like it? What could be better? And they got a lot of feedback from the teachers that were doing it, and I still use it in the classroom. It's a great, way to model circuits without having kids frying components.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, in a pinch on online, and I agree. Like if you could run the circuit and then you could test it out, that's actually pretty cool. But as far as like running a table saw and joinery and all kinds of stuff, that it doesn't seem like there's much. I mean, I don't know either, but I don't see anything in here that even shows you that you're working in a shop. So you might be right. I don't want, like, we're obviously not speaking for University of Wisconsin, but yeah, this is a thing. This is a problem. This is actually why we have the Shop Class podcast, and it's the same reason that Tim, you would talk to Tinkercad and give them feedback. We're here to give feedback and build community. And so, how are you going to have shop teachers that don't know how to run machines? That's crazy,
Well, this seems very similar to here in New York as far as like SUNY Oswego, where I went, and SUNY Buffalo. SUNY Buffalo and Oswego started a tech ed program, back in the 40s and 50s. And when I was there in the late 90s, Buffalo had a few kids still going through tech ed for certification and, teaching, and they still had some labs. But by the time I graduated, I think they only had one or two guys graduating Buffalo, and Oswego was the main one. And then probably by the time I got done with my master's, they were allowing, I think, College of St. Rose, which is near Albany, and I think Westchester Community College to do more of it's a tech ed degree, but they don't have any labs. Like you said, George, you went through all the foundation courses where you were hands-on with those products and you learned how to teach them. Well, St. Rose and the others are just theory-based, all book-based. So,
yeah.
I don't know how those teachers, granted they get their degree and everything, but being hands-on is what this curriculum is all about.
Yeah, for real. I see they also have industrial design, and you kind of need hands-on to do that. By the way, George, this is Tim. He teaches shop class as well. And
Hey, Tim.
So, George, nice to meet you. Pleasure
Nice to meet you as well.
Dave Bauer's joining us as well. Pretty cool. Okay. Yo, go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say, I check out, every once in a while on YouTube, check out George's work and all the things that he's involved with, and use some of the stuff that he talks about online with the kids, show them when they need it. And it's awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks for that.
Hey, no problem.
Nice. And yeah, that's a good lead in. Now, here we are, fast forward after your high school, middle school and high school shop classes. How did you get to where you are now?
Well, I'm in my shop and I walked here. Oh, you mean like in the big picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
Time-wise.
Yeah. Well, so when I graduated, I wanted to teach shop in the worst way. And when I graduated Stout, that was at a time when the tech ed programs were being closed in so many high schools. So I applied for a number of programs, applied for a number of jobs where I could find them, and just didn't land any. So in the end, I taught conventional high school shop for a year. And then actually prior to that, I had worked when I was looking for a job, I ended up hired by Shopsmith. At that time had retail stores with a school in the back. So Shopsmith is the 5-in-1 Mark V tool. So they had retail stores with a school in the back, and I got hired to run one of those schools. So I did that for, I don't know, a couple of years. Then I got this high school teaching job. And then Shopsmith offered me a job to run a bigger school of theirs. So I left the high school job and took that. And that really was the beginning of where I'm at today, which is tech ed for adults. I mean, I was teaching woodworking to adults, and that was cabinet making, bolt turning, furniture making, all the usual suspects of topics. And eventually Shopsmith closed their stores. So I'd worked for them on and off for quite a while. Somewhere in there, I was in Peace Corps. I lived in Africa for 3 years. And
wait, let me interrupt you for just a second. I'm not familiar with Shopsmith. Is this yeah? I'm metal and auto
because you're too young. So okay. So Shopsmith was a pretty cool thing in its day. 5-in-1 tool, table saw, drill press, sander, lathe, horizontal bore. Was that 5? And yeah, when I started with them in the 80s, mid 80s, that machine was like $1,200, $1,600. So think about, this is at a time pre tools being imported into this country. So it was competing with the Deltas, Powermatics, American made cast iron. And it fit a good spot in the marketplace where for that amount of money to go home with 5 tools and in a very small footprint, if you had confined space, like there's no way you could have spent what you bought a Shopsmith for and got those 5 tools. Today you can. Like that with import of foreign made tools, that whole dynamic has changed a lot. But I ended up, eventually I had 2 or 3 of them. And my first, like, when I was doing woodworking, custom woodworking for people, I was doing all of that on Shopsmiths. And it was a great way to do all that in a really tiny garage.
And which machine is that? Is that the Mark IV?
Mark V, Mark V 510. So somewhere, I don't know, Mark 520S is maybe the picture that it shows there at $3,500. That's pretty similar to what we were selling when I started with them.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
You'll see them. You see them all over Marketplace, and you see them all over at yard sales and stuff too. A lot of people have them.
A 5-in-1 tool. It's a table saw, a disc, sander, lathe, heart. Wow, that's a lot going on there.
And they would pre-retail stores, and even once the retail stores were open, I remember as a kid standing in the mall by my mom's house, watching them demonstrate this machine. And that was their sales approach, sales kick, is they would roll the machine in and they would show you what it did and how it did it. And then they would take orders right there, and then they would ship it to you. Shopsmith would ship it to your doorstep.
Wow. This is so fun. Am I the only one that doesn't know what this is? Did everybody already know? Tim, you knew this thing? Oh my God.
Yeah, because
Duke?
a lot of my kids at school, they'll say like they get into like woodworking and table and you're like, oh, I want to get a table saw and I want to get, a lathe and I want to get a bandsaw. And then the next thing you know, a couple of days later, they'll come and say to you, hey, I found this thing. And then I'm like, all right, well, show me. I want to see a picture of it. So they fire up their phone and they start showing me pictures. I'm like, oh, that's a shopsmith. And, I'm like, yeah, good. Give it a whirl. I mean, if that's in your market, if that's in your price range, give it a whirl. I mean, you can always go up from there. So, and sometimes they buy them, sometimes they don't. And then it's, it's out there. It's an option for people that have, like George said, it's an option for people that have a small footprint or have a small area.
Oh yeah, look at this.
Yeah, they've got a crazy long history. Made in Dayton, Ohio. In Ohio, I think it was Dayton. And the plant was right there. It never went overseas. All of the castings and everything were made right there in Ohio.
Wow. That's so cool. Hey, this is why we do this. Got to share the community. I had no idea. That's awesome. All right. Well, pretty cool. So, okay, so you're working for Shopsmith, and they were teaching as well at the.
Yeah, so I was teaching for Shopsmith, and then at that point, went overseas with Peace Corps, did 3 years of teaching woodworking in Africa, came back, went back to Shopsmith, and then they closed all their stores. So
Hey, we can't glance over you going to Africa. You got some stories for us?
Well, that was so from a woodworking and a teaching perspective, that was amazing because all my training had been in power tool woodworking, and which was fine with me. I mean, that's where I was at. And then when I got to Africa to teach woodworking, that was all hand tool work. There was no electricity at the school, so there was no choice. I mean, there was no bailout option. You had to do everything by hand. So the kids we were working, and so a funny part of that was, as a woodworker, I'm all excited, like, this is going to be cool. I'm going to Africa. Swaziland is the name of the country. Going to Swaziland, going to teach woodworking, and I'm familiar with Purple Heart and Paduke and all these amazing imported woods, and I'm going to have this opportunity right on the spot to work with this cool stuff. So it turns out Swaziland is like the #2 exporter of pine in the world. So the kids worked with pine all day, every day. And we'd get it 4/4 rough, and they would hand plane it one face flat, marking gauges to mark out the other face parallel, hand plane the other face. So for me, I spent many hours in the shop after class, often by the light of a kerosene lantern, trying to master this. Like tomorrow, I have to be able to teach hand cut dovetails. So tonight, I got to learn how to do hand cut dovetails. Fine Woodworking was real good to me. I had a relationship with them before going, and they sent me a case of Taj Frid. I never say his name right, but a whole hand tool joinery book that he did. They sent me a whole case of those for the kids. So I learned a boatload by reading that book, and it's A Swatini there at the bottom. They changed the name since I was back. Yep, there you go.
Wow.
Tiny country. So yeah, it was literally trial by fire. I mean, I was kind of see one, do one, teach one kind of a format to get up to speed on the kids needed. What the kids had to do was 5-year program. It's based on a British school system. So at the end of the 3rd year, they would do a practical test, hands-on, and a written test, and then another one at the end of their 5th year. So the practical test was some tester somewhere would decide they need to cut a through mortise and tenon and a half blind dovetail or whatever it was. And then those get submitted and they get graded. So I had to be able to teach the kids those skills so that they could pass these national exams that they had to take in order to pass the program.
Wow, that is cool.
It was a really, really good experience. I had a great time, traveled, hitchhiked everywhere, all over sub-Saharan Africa, from Nairobi to Cape Town, literally overland. it was an incredible time to be there.
That's awesome. What a cool experience. And you did that 3 years straight, or you came back?
No, it was Peace Corps wants 27 months. So did 27 months of Peace Corps and then stayed another 6. So not quite 3 years, but then traveled for 6 months more after Peace Corps.
That's amazing. That's important. Some people call that the gap year. You know,
Yeah.
In the States, they don't really encourage that. They always say, go to college and then go to work. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, how are you a person? Like, you really should do something in between, you know?
And there were so many in hitchhiking, you know, you run into people all the time. And there were so many people from other countries that were from the UK, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe. And they were 17 years old, and exactly what you're saying. They were taking a year to just go mess around and see what there was to see. And then at the end of that, they'd figure out what they were going to do next. So it is, it's so eye-opening to go overseas. And I mean, I was, I got to think, I was 29 before I did it. But yeah, it would be very healthy to do that younger and see what the rest of the world looks like.
Definitely. Yeah. I took a visa after college. I wish I should have taught something, but instead I just took whatever job I could get. I was in London and I bartended for a year, and that was interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
It kind of gives you, like you said, it gives you another perspective. Like, you think you understand the US. Well, live with some people that are not from the US, and then a whole culture, like, you know, and then they'll tell you what they think, and then you can then you at least have a comparison. You know. Cool. Very interesting. All right. Okay, so yes, I had to stop you on that one because I'm like, wow, okay, you lived in Africa for 3 years. That's pretty cool.
So came back, worked for Shopsmith some more, taught, and then they closed all their stores, so I was left high and dry, without a job. So I took a job as a production manager of a commercial cabinet shop and did that for 4 years. But while I was doing that, I was teaching almost every weekend at the woodworking shows, Rockler, Woodcraft, anybody who would have me to teach adult woodworking. And I had already developed all this curriculum for Shopsmith. I had all the stuff in the can. So I basically just took that show on the road, and any place that would bring me in, I would go. So for 4 years, it was cool with the shop because I learned so much. We had 13 guys in the shop, and I was in charge of keeping them all busy. So I really learned a lot about woodworking from a streamline the process perspective. We did not have a CNC, so every cabinet we built we had a beam saw, but everything else was done table saw, handheld routers. So I really learned a lot about streamlining processes. And then while I was doing that, I built a shop. And then in 98, I opened that shop as my own school. So during the 4 years where I had a W-2 job, I was teaching for whatever. I'd go to Woodcraft and teach, and I would get everybody's name and email address at the end of the class, and did that over and over and over. Every time I was someplace, I did that. So that by the time I opened my school, I had this email list, and I could say, now I'm teaching in my own facility. And I continued to teach wherever people would have me, but my big push was to get my own thing going in that shop, in my own shop. And I still did custom work at that point. Well, so this is the shop I'm in since about 2011. This is my new one. This one I did not build. So my first shop I had built on the hobby farm I was living on at the time. And then that was 1,000 square foot space. This new one is 3,200 square feet.
Okay. That's great that you built this business by being on the road and then teaching when you could. That's a good idea, you know. I have a small, my day job is a shop teacher, but I have a small business where I teach basically similar stuff to what I teach during the day. And I did it on the road first. And then now I'm borrowing. I rent on a Sunday when the business is closed. So there's a business that sells metal. the metal supermarket, and then on Sundays, I rent their Sundays.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, but then what I aspire to do is have my own shop. You know, but that's a hard place to get to. You gotta teach a lot of people, and you gotta get through a lot of revenue and cost and revenue balances to figure out if it's even possible. You know,
But it's a cool way to do it, where you've got your set whatever biweekly income coming in off the W-2 job while you're building your dream. And then, I mean, I guess like me, eventually you'll get to a point where you just got to take that leap of faith and say, okay, I think I've got enough buildup, I've got enough momentum. So for me, that was in 1998, and I've been self-employed ever since 1998. So it's a good way to transition into that spot where you want to be.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, like you know, everybody's like, oh, you got to go for it and quit your job, this and that. No. You got to have another step before you just jump from one platform to the other. You know, pretty cool. Damien's joining us from Australia.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Good morning.
Oh yeah, it's the
For
next
you.
day. Yeah, this is an old joke, but new to you. As you know, if you need you want to know what's happening in the stock market, you could just ask him because it's tomorrow.
It's like talking to a fortune teller.
Yeah. What's happening over there? Pretty cool. Okay.
Damien, how's the neck?
It's free.
Yeah.
I got a follow-up appointment with my doctor. It was meant to be today, but it got moved to next Tuesday. So the medications are slowly going down.
There you go. You look better, man.
Back in
Damien's
school.
recovering.
Yeah, recovering from the surgery. I got a cool scar down the back of my neck. It's like,
Oh, geez. So okay, so now, yeah, good to see you, Damien. Now, can you tell us a little about your school and what you've been doing over there, like your specialty? Kind of give us like an overview, and then what do you specialize in?
I specialize in things that people are willing to pay to learn, and I'll adapt to whatever that needs to be. I'm not, so in that regard, with woodworking, and this is something I've run into a lot in my woodworking career, is that question of what do you specialize in? What do you, I don't know, trying to kind of pigeonhole that. And it really throws back to my childhood, and then also the whole concept of, as a tech ed teacher, being material processes, not being just woodworking or just electronics or just automotive repair or just small engines. So similarly today, like I'm all over the map. I'm forging in my garage. I'm building a cabinet. I'm turning a bowl. I've got CNC machines. I'm messing with epoxy. Historically, with the classes, cabinet making, bowl turning, and CNC have been the three most popular. So really, I've winnowed it down at this point to offering in those topics. And it depends on with my school, it depends on what's going on in the rest of the world. So woodworking clubs will bring me in, retail stores, maybe manufacturers for training, woodworking clubs to teach on their site. So I'm away from here. So I first fill my schedule with that on the road stuff. And then I reverse engineer my calendar here, depending on how much time is available at that point. With having some life left, trying to not consume every weekend in my year with work. So I think it's been a little bit, it's probably been 2 or 3 months since I had a class in here, which was kind of an introduction to woodworking class that I do. So it's not uber regular here. And again, because the on the road stuff is picking back up. So I've been traveling a lot recently, just like Maker Camp coming up. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now when you go on the road, do you have a whole trailer setup? Do you have like a equipment you bring with you?
No, depending on where it is, if it's, I don't know, So when I taught for the San Diego club, I flew to San Diego and they had a great shop. So then I will find out what the place has on hand, and then I can figure out what I can teach based on what they have. So it's something like the Mark Adams School in Indiana. I mean, he's got a 30,000 square foot facility with any tool you could want. So you could teach anything at his place. And I drive there, but only because it's close, not because I need to take tools. Other places, if it's close enough for me to drive and I can augment the topic by bringing something from my shop, I will. But I try to not do. I mean, I don't want to haul a bandsaw or a table saw or something. I might haul a router table if I need to, but no, as a rule, whoever's hosting me has something, and then I work with what they have.
Pretty cool. That's cool. Where in San Diego did you go to? What was that?
Well, it's the San Diego Woodworking Club, which I think is the biggest club in the country. And they've got a huge shop. They've got a big membership, an amazing shop. So I mean, it was in San Diego. So I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where it was. You know, I don't know what the address was. But.
I was there in the summer, and is it the Fine Woodworkers Association?
That sounds right. San Diego Fine Woodworkers. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a real enthusiast town. Like people are into custom cars and craftsmanship, and it's a real like craftsmanship enthusiast town. I think
It is
pretty cool.
It is a big car area, and that's where the big wooden it's called Wave Crest. It's a big car show, wooden car show in September. That's where that happens out there.
Boy, there's a niche. Is every car is wooden then?
Not
the old Woodies, right?
yeah, the old Woody wagons out there. Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a show called Wave Crest, and it is actually it's another name. I don't remember what it is, but it's a car show for wooden cars and wooden bodied cars, and
That's cool.
Happens in September.
George, is this it?
Yeah, that's the shop I taught him. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's pretty cool. Nice. Yeah, I didn't know about this. And so CNC is pretty popular now. I don't know that much about it. I just got we got a laser, but we also have CNC plasma cutter, so I have to learn how to use it.
Yeah, the growth in that category has been incredible.
What would you advise if someone was getting into it? What's the first, what's the learning curve? Is there anything what would you recommend? How do you get into it?
Well, it's 90% software and 10% machine. Because all the CNC machines function approximately the same, and they've got different characteristics, but zeroing the axes, running the router or the spindle, that a lot of commonalities there, but really the big part of the learning curve is just VCarve Pro Vectric software is very, very common for CNC design, and then the post-processing to get the design to the tool. And it's a function like for me, when I learned it, I think I was 56 when I got my first CNC machine, and I had never done any drawing or design work on a computer ever in my life. So that entry into VCarve was my first experience with that. And if you want to learn it, I mean, it's like anything. It's like playing a guitar. If you want to do it badly enough, you're gonna figure it out, and you're gonna practice. And there's lots of information out there on VCarve. I've done a bunch of videos on working with VCarve, and other people have as well. So there are plenty of places to learn. They've got Vectric offers VCarve Pro as a free download, and it's pretty fully functional, but you can't export a toolpath. That's the only thing you really can't do. So it's a great way to try it and see if you can do it and if you like doing it. And you can preview your toolpath on the computer. You just can't cut wood. So that's a great starting point to just mess with the free version and see
where
how
is
it
that
goes.
from? Where do you get the
Right where you were, right where you just run the Vectric website, you can download a free version of VCarve Pro, and it's like 90% functional. You, like I said, you just can't try on maybe under or free trial.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great for teachers. Just give it a shot. See if you like it. See if you
Yeah.
can work with it.
Yeah.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
You know, that's my biggest downfall is I don't know a CAD software or say VCarve or anything like that to run a CNC. And like George said, it is so much computer that goes behind the scenes. But once you get past that step, you know, you can make the same thing repetitively the same way every single time. So your time, yeah, you put the time in up front, but in the end, you know, you can have that product. You can make 1,000 of the same product, you know, in a fraction of the time you would be doing it by hand.
Yeah, we have VCarve too at school, but same thing. I am just scratching the surface. I can do lettering, but you know, with the 16th inch bit, 8th inch bit, what? But you go to some of the YouTube videos or some of the, even Vectric has a bunch of nice tutorials, and you see the carvings that they can do and how they change the bits, and it's just too much for me to grasp. I can't figure that out on my own. That's what I need.
That's why you need George. Teach class.
I need the hands-on.
George, you nailed it, man.
I do travel to teach.
I've got a staff member who learns the stuff for me, and he plays around with the software. And like, we got a small CNC. I still don't know what software he used for the carving, but he used Fusion for the design work, and he carved a guitar neck for one of our students using it. And he kept showing me all he's playing around, and I'm just sort of going, yeah, just show me it when it's finished and then teach me later. And he put in a lot of hours to it. I just don't know if I can dedicate the time, although I want to.
Yeah.
Is the internet cool for you guys? It jumped around for me just now.
Yeah, that seems clear here.
Where would you
just a day
find
behind, so it glitched.
Yeah, we're in the simulation. George, what's the do you have any intro videos for us that we should share?
About what?
About CNC.
Well, if you go to www.goa.com,
GOA.
www.goa.com.
Okay.
And then get to that menu across the top where it says, I think it says browse.
Okay.
And in like toward, I don't know, the middle, there's a drop down menu. And one of the items in that menu is benchtop CNC. And some of that is software. Some of that is like cutting non-ferrous metal or whatever. I mean, some is technique based on the CNC machine itself, and some of that is software.
In here?
Yeah, so click on browse.
Okay.
And then under power tool woodworking, benchtop CNC.
Power tool woodworking. Let's see. I don't see it. You guys see it?
Second one down. Goes bands. Go to the right. Go to bandsaw.
There you go. You just missed it.
Oh, here we go. Oh, power. Okay. There we go. Perfect.
So whatever is, I don't know, there's a couple pages of stuff there. Some of that's free, some of it's behind a paid wall.
That's cool.
So, you know, what was pretty cool is that at the end of last year, we took one of our old tabletops that we got, you know, that we took apart, and we threw it on the CNC and we leveled it. We ended up using our CNC to level it because it was just too big to run through the planer.
Yeah.
So having that capability now is awesome because you can take these massive slabs and just literally start smoothing and flattening wood that you wouldn't have been able to process unless you cut it up, ran it through the planer, and then re-glued it back together.
Yeah.
And the one guy at my school is, he's got a grasp on the CNC stuff. So he's like the resident CNC guy that does that kind of stuff. You say, hey, I would like to do this, and he does it. And it's really neat to have that.
That's
Yeah, it's
awesome.
fun when you get comfortable with it. And I'm trying to think of what it is I just did, and it was something that had a weird, like, kidney shape to it or something. Shoot, I can't remember what it was, but something small, but a funky shape. And could I have taken a compass, drawn it, cut it on the bandsaw, sanded it? Yes. But I'm to a point where it's easier and faster for me to sit down at VCarve and draw it and then send that to the CNC. And it's not freehand cut, it's machine cut. So the curves are all fair curves. They're not my choppy bandsaw work. And it's very minimal sanding because it was cut with a nice spiral router bit instead of my bandsaw. So it's cool to get to that point where it's easy to just throw something on the machine and press the go button.
So when did you realize that, because I'm in the stage right now where it's easier for me and quicker for me to take that, say kidney shape, lay it out with traditional layout tools, make the cuts on the bandsaw, sand them and route them and do everything that you need to do. When did you realize that it's going to be faster for you to do it on the CNC?
Probably 2 years or so into having a CNC in the shop. And then, I'm teaching it at this point. So that forced me to accelerate my learning curve so I'd be ahead of the students. But yeah, it's probably about 2 years after I started messing with it that it got to where, and I remember being in a position where the guy who was teaching me, and he's showing me click this, do this, and smoke is pouring out of my ears. Like, yeah, whatever. This is like, no, I didn't get any of that. It was a whole new language and so foreign to me. But once I dipped my toe in it, for me, I was very intrigued by it. And it was just a good fit for the way my brain works. I don't know. So I was pretty aggressive about pursuing getting the hang of it.
That's awesome.
That's how it's become with
Do
me
you
as
think
well.
having
We have the shot pot buddy at the middle school, and I'm trying to get my colleague to let it come over to the high school because I've dabbled in Vectrix, and we have the Origin as well. And then with all the 3D printers that we have in the laser, I've kind of become the software guy as far as figuring all that stuff out and having to master that to be able to teach it either the colleague or to the kids. And like you said, it's 90% software, 10% effort on the machine effort. But learning all these different programs and, code writing and all that, as far as, not physically writing code, but understanding each of these softwares does add up in hours after school.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a huge time commitment. And that's the benefit to Fusion is it talks to many different tools. So if you learn Fusion, I think is more complex to learn. I don't use it, but I'm told it's more complex to learn than VCarve. But then now you know how to 3D print and how to plasma cut and how to use a shotbot CNC and because Fusion will speak to each of those things. Where VCarve is a one-trick pony and it's easier to learn, but it's only going to talk to the Origin that we're looking at here. It's only going to talk to CNC routers. So it's a more limited use software.
Yeah, and see, that's, I didn't know that Vectrix and the Shaper talk to one another. I've been using, like you said, Fusion. I'll create the DXF and then just bring it over into Shaper. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think in VCarve, you don't output it as a post processor, but output it, I think, as a DXF. And then the Origin will see that. I think. Yeah. Don't hold me to that. But
sounds right.
We'll know. Sean will tell us in a week. that
Yeah.
meter. So,
Yeah, and if anybody's listening to this and they're in the New York area, or at least within driving distance, in about a week, we're going to Maker Camp. And that's going to be all kinds of demonstrations. I think we're going to learn a lot there. Damien, did you have a question there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you think it's is it really worthwhile as a teacher or a hobbyist to try and get yourself a small hobby CNC to try and learn it away from the business, or like in my case, away from the school? And I see what guys like Tim talking about, the giant CNC to be able to flatten out a slab. Down in Australian schools, especially in the public system, we're limited to the size of the machine we're allowed to actually buy for safety reasons. And I've often thought about trying to get just a small hobby one, because then I'd be able to sit at home and play with the software and see what I can do, and then hopefully transfer those skills to a bigger machine.
well, yeah, and it's so one of the cool things at Stout when I was getting my tech ed degree, I had one teacher who was a teacher. You know, he wasn't teaching shop. He was teaching us to be teachers. And he was really big on the idea of teaching conceptually. So a great example from him was if you learn to lay out and cut plywood for cabinets, you can probably lay out and cut fabric to sew a piece of clothing. You can probably lay out and cut sheet metal to do duct work. So, and that's really stuck with me. And I think I still teach that way many years later. So in this case, like the concept is the same. If it's a 5x12 format machine, 5 foot by 12 foot bed, or if it's a 24 by 36 machine, they work the same way. And a thing to remember with them is that in one direction you're limited. So if the gantry is across the X dimension and the X is 24 inches, your only dimensional limitation is 24, and you can feed through in the other direction. But my longest machine is 4 feet, and I've routinely done 16-foot long signs by using Vectric software. It's called tiling, and it's built into the software. Then you cut a portion, and then you move the sign, and you cut, and it registers. And then you cut a portion, and you move the sign, and it registers. And then you cut a portion, and so you can do big work on small machine. You know, you're not going to level a 60-inch wide tabletop on a 24-inch wide machine, but you can do long work on short machines. The limitation being whatever fits between the risers on the gantry is your limitation.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you don't have it's kind of like an unlimited throat, or it's like it's almost like the Beverly shear versus the stomp shear.
I'll take your word for that. Sure.
Okay, yeah. That's cool. Pretty cool. Yeah, I have a learning curve as well. So I've done some CAD, I've done SolidWorks, and then I transitioned into Onshape, which is kind of like SolidWorks but online, which I heard is very similar to Fusion 360. And then you can output flat DXF, and then from there I have no clue what to do. Yeah. So I don't know what to do to go from my DXF to a CNC plasma cutter or to a router. But I assume you can import this stuff, right?
You can import DXF files into vCarve.
Okay.
So whatever else plays nice together. I don't know. I don't want to talk out of turn and go down a road that that it in the end doesn't actually work. But like as an example, you can draw 3D in SketchUp, and you can get that to vCarve, where if you've drawn a cabinet that's got sides and a back and a whatever, and there are dados in there, that'll translate to vCarve as allowing you to tool path those case parts in vCarve.
Okay, cool.
I was even able to like import a file from like an image and then trace it in SketchUp and then export it into V-carve.
Yeah.
Like cutting boards and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. And is it similar to, like, let's say, like almost like a laser? I haven't used the laser yet, but Duke's been doing some laser work. Is it kind of is similar in that way? Just once you get to know that software, you're good.
I think for flat work, it is like if you're cutting out flat shapes, but lasers are cutting out a pattern, and if you're cutting out pieces to go together with the CNC, it's similar. I've heard of people using Illustrator to basically map out flat patterns that they can use on either a laser or a CNC.
Yeah,
Obviously, with the CNC, you've got to adjust the size of the tool.
Yeah, I use InDesign for all my laser work. And, a lot of people use Illustrator. And those are good softwares for that. But I just know InDesign much more or a lot better than Illustrator. And, I mean, you can do a lot of cool things with Illustrator. Now, I don't know how they interact with, say, a CNC. I don't think you can export, and I could be wrong. Because I never looked to try to export something as a DXF from an Adobe product.
Well, but you need the post processor would be the disconnect. But you could, if you're comfortable doing all the design in Illustrator, the DXF would have to go to VCarve or something similar, because it's got to talk to the machine. So when you get to the tool pathing, and like when people talk about writing code, that's what VCarve is doing for you. Is you're turning all those tool paths into what does the Axiom machine need to see to do that correctly, versus what does the ShopBot machine need to see? What does the Next Wave machine need to see? And that post processor is different for each of those brands. So you have to have that bridge to get from the design to the tool path to the post processor, so it talks the language of that particular CNC.
Okay.
Nice. So let's switch gears here and talk about Maker Fair, Maker Camp. Sorry. And so are you going to be demonstrating some of these techniques and some of these processes?
Ironically, I'm doing CNC at Maker Camp. So great segue. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So
Let's talk
Ron,
about
ShopBot,
that.
at all your classes.
ShopBot sends me to Maker Camp. Thank you, ShopBot. And I'm doing stuff. You probably are looking at the schedule and know better than I, but I know I'm cutting non-ferrous metal. I'm doing a drag knife on leather, which is just what it sounds like. I'm cutting leather with a knife in the CNC. I'm putting pens in the CNC instead of a cutting tool and using it as a plotter. I'm going to do one of my kids' drawings is going to get then redrawn using the CNC machine. Plexiglass, cutting plexiglass, engraving glass. That's a diamond tipped tool that gets used to engrave
cool.
glass. So yeah, it's part of what, like, I think especially for Maker Camp and the people who come to Maker Camp, I wanted to get away from, like, cutting wood is pretty laissez-faire everyday stuff, and I'm gonna make a sign as well, but I think this other stuff, cutting aluminum, engraving glass, cutting leather, this is all kind of weird stuff you can do on a CNC that not everybody knows about, and it's a little more fun to do that. So
that's cool. Oh, this is
that was last year. Yeah.
Oh, I was at last year. I guess I didn't see it. That's awesome. We can't wait. We're looking forward to this. We had such a good time last time. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I'm in. I talked to Duke earlier on the phone.
All right, good. Meet us at the Walmart on the way up. We'll drive together if you want.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, we'll discuss the details. Yeah. This is pretty cool. Nick will be there. Tim will be there. I'll be there. Duke will be there. Damien's going to fly in from Australia. That'll be awesome. So let's look at the schedule. Let's look at what you're doing there. Let's see. That would be right here. schedule. So it's kind of hard to see, but we want to be able to find you.
I'm in the Saw Stop Woodworking tent. And then, yeah, so somewhere in that column,
Shape
they're
of
plotting on a shop bot. So
There we
next one
go.
down, there you go. So that's plotting is with the felt tip in there to draw.
5 p.m. on Friday.
Right during dinner time. What's with that?
Yeah.
We're gonna try and make it up there by then. I'm not sure we're gonna make it to your first one because we're driving up from Jersey and also PA. Okay, and then the next day on Sunday, let's see. Oh, here we go. Engraving glass. That's pretty cool. Really? You're gonna cut glass with this?
Yeah, it's a diamond tip stylus, and you don't run the router or the spindle. You put that at 0 RPM, and it's the diamond scratches the glass. So it just pulls back and forth. It's basically the same way the felt tip will work in the CNC. So yeah, it just drags back and forth. You can use that on glass, metal, granite, marble. When my kid got his Eagle Scout award, he did a bee garden for his Eagle service project. And for like a cornerstone at the garden, we got a sink cut out from a granite countertop shop. And we cut that to the size we wanted and then engraved the nature of his project all on that granite using a diamond drag on the CNC.
Okay, interesting. Where do I find the bot you're going to use? That's the handheld.
It's the desktop. No, that desktop 24x18 is what'll be there.
Oh, one of these.
Yeah, you may have.
Yeah, you went past the
There it
last
is.
one there on the
So
right.
not the Max, not the desktop Max,
Oh,
just the desktop.
Oh,
they might have to go back one page, Ron.
okay. Explore CNC products. Let's see.
Right there on
So
the
there.
end.
Oh,
Extreme right. There you go.
oh wow.
Is that gonna be
That's-
Jimmy's machine, I'm assuming, George?
What?
You're using Jimmy's machine just for ease of use, or?
Yeah, it's I've got one of these. Well, in fact, this is the first machine I had in my shop was a 24x18 desktop. And this is nice for teaching because it's small. So it's very manageable to get in and out. It's 110 volts, doesn't draw a lot of amps. So it's great for this venue in a tent on a lawn where there's no big bench set up or anything.
This is great. I didn't even know about this. I thought there was these full-size tables. I didn't know you could get a small one like this.
Yeah, and their desktop max is 24x36, and that'll take a tool changer, which is pretty cool. I had one of those in my shop very briefly, and I really got spoiled by the tool changer because it'll just what it sounds like. It knows from the software it's time to go from the 1/4-inch end mill to the 45-degree V bit, and it'll automatically go pick it up, come back, start that tool path, then it'll swap that for the single point round over, and it'll come back and do that tool path. And that level of automation is crazy cool.
How
Wow.
much do they retail for?
Yes, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, that's the sort
I
of
know
thing
the
that I
buddy
really
that
wanted
we
to
have
get.
was 10, and that was
Sorry,
probably
what was that?
the buddy, which is probably the next version up, or size wise as far as the bed goes from Shopbot.
Footprint,
We
yeah.
have that, and I think that was around 10 or 12.
Yeah, for some reason, like the one we got for school was a Roland. The bed size is basically the size of an A3 piece of paper, a little bit bigger, similar to our laser. It has a 6 tool changer inside it, which was one of the bonuses, but it cost like 17 grand for us, Australian. So
That's
that
a
was
lot
one
of
of the
money
reasons
for a
why it
small
took so
machine.
long. Yeah, and that's I see teachers in the private system showing off their giant 8x4 machines in the workshops, and we're just going like, yeah, okay, our kids are at a little bit of a disadvantage there, but at least we've finally gotten something for them to learn with it.
It's pretty cool. I mean, this is like, this is the future right here. I mean, automation and lights out engineering. Not that it replaces the handwork or the traditional way of doing it, but I mean, imagine having the power of this tool. Plus, the kids get into it, and you can make all kinds of stuff. This is pretty cool. No kidding. I mean, this has been around. It's just that it kind of takes sometimes. There's a little bit of a lag. Like sometimes you need someone like George to inspire people. Before a shop teacher or someone new to it jumps in. Pretty cool. Oh, look at that. They're making I think they were making parts for their robot or something like that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So they cut aluminum on our machine at school. The robotics team uses it, and they cut aluminum parts for their robot for the first robotics competition, and they've had a lot of success with doing that. And they mount the aluminum right to the bed, and then they go ahead and cut it and do their thing. And there's different ideations of what they're doing, and it's trial and error. And they've also cut plastic, and they do all types of cool stuff. And it's so neat to see it being integrated into an after school program. That it's just amazing to have that capability now, where some of these kids don't have to sit and draw and lay out like they traditionally did, and you can get the kids excited right away. And hopefully in the end they can say, well, how would I do that if I didn't have the CNC? Learn that route too.
Now what's this 5-axis machine here?
Well, I'm not a shop bot. I don't work for them, but I think 4-axis would be,
Whoa.
well, that's because it's running horizontal there. So 4-axis would be if it had a rotary axis, like a lathe on the end of it. But now that's the 5th axis you're seeing there.
That's awesome. Look at this thing. That's probably after vacuum forming, probably. Interesting. That's pretty cool to cut it. Okay, that's their most popular video. That's why I checked it out. 100,000 views. Pretty cool. Okay, so now let's look back at the schedule. So you're doing non-ferrous metals, or are you going to do, what are you besides glass? You're doing some metal?
Yeah, I'm taking sheets of 1/4-inch aluminum, and I'll cut here. I think before I go, I'm going to cut an aluminum maker camp medallion, and that'll go into that. I don't remember what it's called, where everybody swaps stuff.
Oh yeah,
the gift exchange or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called. So there'll be an aluminum medallion that I CNC cut that'll go in there. But then, I'll also cut aluminum on the fly at the event.
that's pretty cool. So how many demos are you doing during the day on Saturday?
4, it looks like.
Oh wow,
or 5. I don't know. And then I'll be standing there at the machine doing other stuff in between. So it's the schedule just creates, like, if somebody looks at the schedule and they know they want to learn about cutting non-ferrous metal, that gives them something to hone in on. But the machine will be running. I'll be doing something on it all day, every day.
nice. Plexiglass as well. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and you're going all day Sunday as well. So even if someone came up on just a Sunday, you got plenty of stuff to do. This is going to be packed. Is there any other booths that you're interested in if you get a break?
Yeah, I love forging metal, and I want to go. I'll spend every spare minute I can leaning over an anvil trying to make something with good instruction, because I'm bad at it. So
Yeah, that's super cool.
I'll spend as much time over there as I can.
Now, Nick, where are you going to be at?
It's gonna be I guess it's the saber tooth spur tent, I think it's called. So George, you have the luxury. You're going to be on the tennis court, so you're not even on the ground anymore. You're on pavement.
Really? I get to be
Yeah.
on pavement. Nice.
So you'll be on a nice flat turf. I'll be in the
Nice.
mud.
Oh yeah, there I see Nick. He's doing 4 classes on Saturday.
Yeah. But most likely, like George said, I'll just be there and turn for
You just
18 hours. And
non-stop turning last year. Here's Nick turning endlessly. Yeah, last year was fun. That was a lot of fun. We got some good photos, and that was the first time I met Nick. So, and we were been on the podcast for a while. Is Justin coming?
Yeah, Justin's doing his timber frame. He worked
Nice.
on they're going to do a bridge, or they're working on a covered bridge type structure thing. And
That's cool.
I saw Austin on another podcast or something, or Instagram
He
Live.
did an Instagram live just the other day. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying something along the lines that they kind of changed the direction, and they're going with some type of different flooring in there than they initially planned. So they're going to be working on that too.
yeah, they were originally just going to put planks across, as a traditional, decking, and showcase the joinery of the timber framing bones. I think they're going to put inset and then do like plexiglass, like enough plexiglass to be able to see through the bridge to see the joinery.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I helped out last year with that structure. I came up during the timbering and cut one of those beams going across there, and that was a lot of fun. It was very, very interesting, something totally different, in the woodworking realm, and I learned a lot about it, even though I only did it once.
And is these letters were cut with the handheld version?
Yeah, the Shaper Origin.
The Origin. Yeah.
Shaper Origin. Is that a shop bot or is that something different?
That's a different
the
company.
handheld CNC
What is it called? Shaper?
Origin.
The first video he was on it.
They're trying to get Shaper to come to the New Jersey Technology Education Engineering Association fall conference. They're trying to get them to show up to the fall conference this October.
Well, then next weekend, talk to them at Maker Camp,
Okay.
and you can make that happen.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't know whether they have something double booked or they're just in initial talks. I don't know exactly. I'm just mentioning it because I'm friends with the organizer.
Frank, you do? Book a demo and tell them to come to
Yeah.
One next weekend. I think he's the head rep for this for the U.S. Right, George? If I'm not mistaken. And then
Yeah, I think he's the head rep for the country. I mean, he was the one doing all the demoing at IWF in Atlanta as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk. I didn't even think about talking to him.
Comes with Sean is the regional person.
Joe, right? No. Yeah.
Joe or George?
I don't know.
It might be Joe.
This is awesome.
I feel like this would be a better introduction to CNC for me than starting off with those like a full desktop unit.
Yeah, I mean, I have this as well, and I was again naive to their programming, so I was using Fusion to export to Shaper, and their updates have gotten so easy as far as you can draw on the board itself and scan over it with the Origin, and then the Origin will do all the back work as far as taking your physical drawing on the board and being able to create shape.
Oh, you could use it as a scanner, not just a follower. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can draw on the wood, and then you have to basically map out your piece of wood with the domino tape. It will see those lines and say, you want to cut on those? So
That's awesome.
it's very intuitive, once you start playing with this.
Yeah,
Now,
when my daughter worked for me, so she would have been early 20s at the time, and a shop full of I've got 5 CNC machines because of the classes and the Origin, and she was always way more comfortable with the Origin, and it was just a function of it was right there in front of her, and she felt like she had great control of it, and she knew, like, kind of quotation marks in the air, exactly what it was going to do. Where with the CNC, you're doing the design, you create the post processor, you press the go button, and then it does its own thing. Where with the Origin, she just felt like she was in better control of her woodworking destiny with the handheld CNC.
I gotta ask naive question here. You know, I'm new. I'm not really a woodworker, but what is this white joint here? This looks amazing. Is that 3 different pieces here?
Double dovetail.
Yep.
So it's the dovetail, and then what's the white part?
Another piece of wood. So they probably created the dovetail profile and then glued in the maple, I'm going to assume, and then recut the other dovetail for the other side to come back in to get.
Yeah, it's
I
otherwise
tried-
known as an inlaid
I
dovetail.
tried to do that. I tried to do that without a CNC, and it's very difficult.
Jonathan Katz Moses has some good videos on it.
Yeah,
Just
it's
do it
easy.
by hand.
You can just maybe put like cut the dovetail smaller and then use wood filler to fill in the joints there.
So you mean the way my dovetails normally look is what you're saying?
George, you can't admit that. I mean, like you're on like the high pedestal with me right now. And you use wood filler?
epoxy.
Oh man, I'm gonna bring you down a notch, George.
This is funny. That's cool.
Now I can't talk as highly about you to my shop classes. That's what I usually do.
It's all about knowing how to cover your mistakes.
Well, that's what I tell them. I tell them a craftsman can cover their mistakes or fix their mistakes, and they don't believe me when I tell them that. And I say, they're like, "Are you a good woodworker?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm decent, but I have to learn how to fix all the things you guys mess up. You know, like you cut something too big, or you cut something too small, or something doesn't fit right. I have to figure out how to fix and undo what you just did and make it look like it was intended to be that way. I can't.
Happy accidents, like happy trees.
Yeah, I
Thank
can't
you,
tell
Bob
you.
Ross.
I can't tell you the amount of plugs I've put in stuff just to make it look like an accent when really it was a mistake because they threw a screw right through the surface of something.
I remember seeing this the Origin at Maker Faire in New York City years ago.
Yeah, a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
really
when
too bad.
I backed the Kickstarter and got one of the first versions.
And it's really too bad about Maker Faire kind of collapsing a little because that was a really cool show. But what's nice about this the Catskill Maker Camp is it's more like actual materials. I feel like the Maker Faire was like plastic and circuits, and this is actually this is like craftsmanship. There is a kind of a difference, which is kind of cool. Plus the vibe is like a little more adult and the kids are welcome, but it's a little more like they lit the place on fire at night, which was cool. Later on, doing this thing, that was cool when they lit the rocket stove, giant rocket stove on fire. This is like the coolest thing. Oh my God, are they doing that again? What's the finale?
They're doing something similar. They haven't disclosed what it's going to be.
Oh, good. I like that it's a secret. That is awesome. Now, just going back here for a sec, was this? I remember you guys said that this was done with an Origin as well, the lettering.
Yep.
And then what do you do? Just fill it in with a paint or epoxy or something?
It's epoxy in that one.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's
I
awesome.
didn't check it when I was up there in July. I wonder how the epoxy fared the weather with it being wet timber still.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. What now are they going to have that big the big cookout again?
Yeah, I'm bringing my barbecue up Wednesday next week.
Nice.
Will Shear is going to be running that with Chris from Green Money Fab.
Okay, that's cool. These forges were open all night long. You could just roll up and just work. There was no, not much restriction. It was awesome. So George, you'll be doing some of this.
I'm hoping.
So
That's
Brett
cool.
and Bob will be running that.
Look at the size of this fire compared to the crowd. That was amazing.
They said they're estimating 700 people this year.
Yeah.
How many people last year?
I think the cap was 500, as far as ticket sales go. And Austin said he was close to the 700 already.
Wow, awesome.
So,
This will be a blast. I can't wait. That is cool.
See, I didn't order any tickets yet. I guess I'm just gonna walk in.
Yeah, you could do it day of or whatever. Yeah, give us.
The lady at the Wellmont Inn said, just get them the day of. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this is where I got in trouble with Nick. I made this. I turned this piece of garbage, and then Nick was like, no. I was very much like his student in a shop class. He says, no, do it again. And I was like, yeah, but it's cool. He's like, yeah, how are you gonna sand it? I was like, oh. I was like, oh, okay, fine. I still have it somewhere here. I keep it on my desk here. I don't know where it is. Anyway, it's cool. Oh, here we go. Turned out nice.
Oh, don't make me break out my whale.
Oh my god! Don't even do that. I died. Hand carved whale. I thought it was something else. Anyway, all right. So this has been pretty cool, man. Oh, here we go. We got Mark Willie right on cue. He's joining us. George, what's going forward? What do you recommend? What do you think the shop teachers should add to their classes? And what's in the future for you?
I think they should all have a copy of my Live Edge slab book. That's the most important.
yes, George, I do.
It's hard for me to say because I'm not an active tech ed teacher in the public or private schools today. But what I've seen, the successful program, so that my school district here is a great example of, for like decades, it was very standard woodworking, kind of cutting board, birdhouse kind of stuff. That teacher retired. A younger teacher came in, was real aggressive with grant writing wherever he could. And he ended up, they still do traditional woodworking, but he's also got a plasma cutter, a CNC, lasers. And I think that's part, and so today it's to where that tech ed program has a waiting list of kids wanting to get into it. And they just passed a referendum to put an addition on to make that shop bigger to support the program. So
Awesome.
I think that the teacher's energy is a big part of that. And then also recognizing that, we're all very married to these electronic devices, and you can't ignore that. And it was the same with me when my daughter was here, like that ability for her to do CNC work with the Origin rather than necessarily the traditional table saw jointer work kind of stuff, or in addition to, was an important part of her working here. So I think that to keep kids' attention, you got to be willing to go down that electronics road, and that's where industry is today. I mean, very few shops are cutting every stick of wood they use only on a table saw, the way I would have 30 years ago. So you gotta look at what is the future of woodworking, metalworking, whatever it is. And if that means getting automated, then you need to let the kids get automated as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great one. And I'm a little bit laggy on that. I'm getting into the CNC plasma this year, and I've got a manual mill, but we're actually going to get a Tormac 440, which is a CNC. But it's pretty obvious that's the way to compete if you're manufacturing something, even if it's a small business, or if it's a large business. Yeah, you're not going to cut everything yourself. So yeah, if we get that into the shops, the relevance goes up, the interest goes up. You might have some people that go all the way and they like hand carve something, but or make some beautiful piece of furniture, but it's only a few people. Whereas I think the automated tools reach out a little further, even if it's not exactly traditional woodworking, you know? Yeah, I'm with you on that. Let me introduce you to Mark Willie, George. Mark Willie, he's the T-Stud master, and he joins in late because he's got his another show going on. Something else we do here is we talk about energy, and Mark is in the building science community. So that's another piece to the puzzle for the new students and teachers coming up is the automated tools. Yeah, but what about the energy envelope? You know, and that's something that's pretty cool. Mark, you want to show them what you got there? The T-Stud. This is just, I don't know. I just think it's cool. So it's like something you could see, and then that's something you could do some automation and some woodworking with that. Yeah. So basically,
it's just two 2x4s doweled together.
And then there's a brake. So there's a thermal brake there.
Yeah.
Which then allows, slows down the transfer of energy.
I'm the number one salesman on the East Coast, and my only one.
Yeah, I don't even have. I'm not even buying any for a house or anything. I just think it's important to cover. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing that we have this diversity on the show. Like we're doing traditional woodworking, talking about that, and then also CNC, and then also energy envelopes. You know, this is a pretty cool thing.
I grew up being a carpenter. When I walked into this discussion, when George said automating the things are what sets up the kids, it's really funny because I remember how afraid people are of a table saw and a router, right? 6,000 RPM router can take you down the path, but inverting it to have these incredible CNC machines that, you know, like what Duke has produced over his shoulder there with that. I mean, I couldn't make that in a million years with the tools that I grew up on, right? So having crazy carving knives that are designed by computers, it's incredible. I think it's amazing, the folks that get to work with that, and I think that's going to create a lot of jobs.
Totally, it's cool. Well, let's see. I don't know. Maybe we'll wrap it up. It's a little early, but I don't know. Yeah. Anybody else got any lead-in questions?
My question is everyone on here going to the Maker Camp? Is that right?
Yes. Well, not everyone. We'll fly in Damien from Australia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That'd be great.
That would be great. I'm so jealous and happy for you guys for doing that. Damien, I don't know how much you caught of it last year, but Nick's Instagram, like I was on that like flies on stank. I couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, it's such a cool time over there. And we got Dave Bauer here. Maybe he wants to join in, say hi. I see we got
Dave will be another presenter at Maker Camp.
Oh, no kidding, really?
Yes, he's
Oh.
doing the block print demonstration in the Resta shop.
Oh, no kidding. Is Dave there? Is he
What's your IG, Dave?
Oh, hi, I'm here.
Oh, cool. Dave, unexpected extra guest. What's going on, man? Dave Bauer Art?
Yep, that's me.
Oh, you want to give us kind of an overview of what you're going to be doing at Maker Camp?
Sure. Yeah, we're just I'm just doing one of my hobbies that I picked up. Just block printing. Maybe letting people carve their own blocks and print them. So it's pretty, just the most basic form of block printing, but it should be pretty fun.
So what is block printing?
Well, that's block printing is like you'll see linoleum printing where people carve in linoleum.
Oh yeah.
And then you just you can do it like impress the print like with the back of a spoon, just put paper on there and rub it with the back of a spoon, or you can get up to a giant printing press. Ryan Smith is going to be there. He has like a Vandercook proof press, which is like has a giant roller and can is a more industrial style printing, but I'm going to be doing the easier one. We just do it by hand.
So when I taught graphic arts at my former district, we actually did two activities where the kids did their own printing. We did a carving and eraser to make type, and the kids had to carve a letter out of an old, like a soap eraser.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would do a self-reflective profile of themselves. So we would take a picture of the kids, turn it high contrast. They would trace it, use tracing paper. Use the tracing paper, and then the kids hand cut or hand carved in linoleum a self portrait of themselves, and then they would block print that, and it was very tedious. And I think the kids really did get a lot out of that because of understanding the process of how you went from block type and all the old hot type stuff, and then you converted into graphics and going from there. So one of the most awesome pictures, which is, I could never even take a picture of it because it was just so massive, is that at the end of the activity, we would take everybody's picture that did the project and we would line them up across, like we had shelving units in our classroom, and every student that did it, you could see their block printing of themselves. And it was just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's cool. This is going to be awesome.
I swear you've done everything, Tim. Every time someone brings something up, you've done it with your students. It's remarkable.
Well, and I know Bloomquist is not here, but I mean, he jokes about it. I literally have taught almost everything, and a lot of it I wasn't trained in, and it was learning on the fly and learning and staying that day or two ahead of the kids. And everything from automotive to small engines to printing to web page design, desktop publishing, simple CAD, mechanical drawing, woodworking, all that stuff. It's all been like, stay a couple of days ahead and learning how to do it. And I mean, it's what's made me so versatile in what I'm doing now, where I can apply a lot of this stuff. And the kids look at you when you whip a couple things up in Illustrator or InDesign, and they're like, "How'd you do that?" I'm like, "Well, I used to teach this at my old school." And then the kids will come in today, or I had a kid come in today, and he was showing me pictures of his mini bike he was tearing apart. And I mean, it's been 10 years since I taught small engines, but you still have an interest in it.
Small engines will never die. That's my favorite. I love doing that.
Well,
That's awesome.
The year of the shutdown, like right around that time, I was doing fusion with my drafting kids, and I had them designing print blocks, and we started 3D printing them. So obviously we never got around to actually using them to see that they worked as print blocks, but I was dabbling in that as far as digitally creating the whole, block.
You forget about that traditional printing, and there's a lot of people on Instagram that do that traditional printing work, and it's such a unique process that is, you cannot get a computer to recreate that.
No.
And it's just amazing. And I just forget about that small niche or that small world that's out there. And I'm glad to see, was it Dave? Yeah, Dave is showing that at Maker Camp.
I have 8 drawers of print blocks that I picked up, and I have a small printing press thanks to Jimmy, and I got to restore it, but I think it's like an 8.5 by 11 print bed, but eventually I'd like to restore that.
Yeah, the art faculty at my school does block printing with their kids using masonite. So they'll carve it into a sheet of masonite for their small block, and just do some sort of a pattern. We've got a lot of islanders, so they'll do some of their traditional design stuff as a block print.
That's pretty cool. And Dave, is this a podcast we should check out?
You can if you want to.
Yes, you should.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's coming recommended. You want to tell us about it?
Sure. It's about curiosity and problem solving. So, and kind of like what Tim was talking about, how he's picked up like every different skill along the way and uses those, in his teaching. That's kind of what it's about. How makers, combine all their different skills into like a unique combination, and how that, just their story. So
that's awesome, man. And you'll be there at Maker Fair. This is our Maker Camp. This is awesome. It's great. This is such a good connection with a lot of people,
That's cool.
That's all right, man. Are you going to be running any podcast? Oh, you've done a bunch of them. Oh, yeah. And Damien's heard of you all the way in Australia. How'd you find that, Damien? Instagram?
I think where was it? It's probably in one of the Facebook groups that David kind of announced himself and promoted the fact that he was starting up a new podcast. And so checked it out, subscribed, and I think I'm one behind at the moment. I haven't heard the latest.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, I think for this recording, we're going to wrap it up, but I think if people have time, we'll stay on for a bit and catch up. This is pretty cool. Let's see. George, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being asked.
Yeah, this is awesome. And I think it's great that you run basically shop class for adults. And pretty cool that you do a lot of traveling. And thanks for coming to New York, which is only a couple hours away from me. And we get to meet and we get to do some CNC, which is, I need to do that. I need professional development. And it sounds like a lot of people in here, they want to be exposed to CNC and by another shop teacher. So it's not like kind of a mystery,
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be very fun.
Yeah, this will be awesome. There's a lot of good people here tonight. So, all right. So if you got time, hang out. If not, it's no problem. But I think as far as this episode goes, we got it. All right. I'm going to hit the stop recording. Shop Class Podcast. Thanks for joining us.